Porsche is using its legendary 718 RSK to promote its heritage in building four-cylinder engines. It is trying to draw a link between those classic racing machines and its new 718 Cayman that ditches its naturally aspirated six-cylinder engine in favour of a new turbocharged 4.
But who cares? As great as the original 718s may have been, the past is the past, and it doesn't change the fact whether this new four-cylinder Cayman is good enough. Is it still a great sports car? Well, there's only one way to find out. That's to get behind the wheel.
Aside from the new name, Porsche has given the Cayman a thorough midlife upgrade, adding more technology, sharpening the dynamics and smoothing out the styling. But it is the engine that is the real focus. There are two four-cylinder turbos available in the 718 range, a 2-litre for the base Cayman and a 2.5-litre for the Cayman S. Power and torque has been increased in both engines over the outgoing 6 cylinders. The Cayman now packs 220 kilowatts of power and 380 Nm of torque, while the Cayman S has 256 kilowatts and 420 Nm.
But the Cayman has never been about outright power and performance. Like all Porsches, it's about balance, it's about the way it handles and the way that it makes you feel as a driver. The old naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engines were a big part of that. They offered up fantastically linear performance that really allowed you to squeeze the best out of these cars. These new engines, though, are a very different proposition. Whereas the old motors needed a lot of revs to access the real meat of the power and torque, these new 4-cylinder turbos offer up much more torque, much lower in the rev range. But they also have a strong mid-range, which means they're really flexible engines. Notice today, driving around Sweden, you can basically leave the car in third gear, even when you're driving pretty quick, and it'll tackle pretty much any situation. It can pull from right down low, 50, 60 kilometers an hour, all the way up to well over 100 kilometers an hour. It's a fantastic change. Although it's very different to the old engines, it actually is improved it in the Cayman in a lot of ways, because it makes it so much more accessible and easier to live with. And importantly, just as fast as the old car. But of course, the sound of the flat 6-cylinder engine is synonymous with Porsche itself. And that's what's missing. On the plus side, there's plenty of noise coming in from these 4 cylinders. The engineers have done a good job of making sure this still has the sound of a sports car, the sheer volume of it when you really get up it. The actual noise itself, though, I'm a little unconvinced. The most obvious comparison being a turbocharged 2-litre boxer engine is to the Subaru WRX. In fairness, it doesn't sound that gruff. There's a much deeper noise compared to the old 6. But strangely, the engine it sounds most like is actually a Toyota 86. There's that real sort of that classic flat 4 note is there, but just in a more deeper, more guttural way than the old car. I'm not 100% convinced.
But the engine is just one part of the mix. The Cayman has been Drive's best sports car over $50,000 for the past 3 years because it is able to combine racetrack-ready handling with everyday livability.
But not surprisingly, Porsche hasn't messed with a successful formula. The 718 Cayman is still one of the best handling sports cars you can buy. The kind of car that encourages and then ultimately rewards a driver when you really push the limits of it. One of the biggest changes for the 718 is the adoption of the faster steering rack from the 911 Turbo, which actually makes it even more responsive, so you can really place the car with a lot of precision.
Ultimately, Porsche's hand was forced by ever stricter emissions regulations, and fuel consumption has been reduced from 7.7 litres per 100 k's down to just 6.9 litres by the switch to the smaller turbocharged engine, which is an impressive return for such a capable sports car. And it even helps the Cayman equipped with the dual clutch transmission to benefit from a luxury car tax break for efficient vehicles. When the new 718 Cayman range goes on sale in Australia in November, it'll start at $110,000 for the Cayman and $140,300 for the Cayman S. Does the new 718 Cayman deserve its comparison to the legendary four-cylinder Porsches of the past? And more importantly, is it still one of the best sports cars in the world?
The answer to both those questions is yes. It is still a great sports car, but it's a very different Cayman. The engine, the way it delivers its power and the noise that it makes doing so is a big change. But if you give it a chance, it doesn't disappoint.